Since the dawn of civilization, cash money, has been a critical piece of the world's economy. In ancient times, people used gold and silver coins. Today, paper money remains the single most popular way to make transactions in this country. But should it be? Some economists say day-to-day shopping can easily be done electronically, while the continued use of cash hurts the economy and may even cause crime. Kenneth Rogoff is a Harvard professor, a former chief economist at the International Monetary Fund, a famous chess player. He says it's time to move forward toward a cashless society. Professor Rogoff joins us tonight. Professor, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So I've heard this argument before, and I understand and I take seriously the inefficiencies of cash and the possibilities for crime, transnational crime, it avails to criminals. I get all that. But there's also the suspicion that a lot of us have that eliminating it would just increase government power, maybe to a point that's dangerous. Is that a concern for you?
Absolutely. So I actually don't favor getting rid of cash. I favor getting rid of large bills like the 50 and the 100 and similar around the world. I think if you look at the use of cash, actually, by quantity of transactions, it's nowhere near the most popular. It's fallen out. It's behind for purchases over, $50. It's behind, debit cards, credit cards, electronic payments. But for small payments, it's very convenient. And of course, sometimes somebody wants to do something for $5,000, even $100,000. They don't want anyone to know. But you can carry a suitcase of $10 bills, a briefcase of $10 bills of $100,000. 20 pounds, if you have to do that once in a while. We shouldn't go cashless, but I do think if you look at the declining use of cash and the rising printing of these big bills, we ought to realize it's for tax evasion. That's much bigger than crime. And if you can cut back on tax evasion, you could, for example, lower tax rates.
So you do acknowledge, though, it sounds like you are acknowledging that people have an inherent instinct, a desire for privacy. They don't necessarily want anybody, whether it's a bank or the Treasury Department, tracking what they're doing with their money. And that's okay, you think?
Yeah, well, okay. There's a big difference between somebody doing a wholesale business where they're doing $50,000, $100,000 in transactions every week, and they don't want the government to know, and somebody who's doing something on a much smaller scale. And I think these wholesale transactions are facilitated by these big bills, big drug kingpins. Tax evasion is a huge thing. So I just think we need to recalibrate it a little bit, not so much eliminate it.
Are you worried about the vulnerabilities of a digital system? We're moving in that direction anyway. But I mean, the beauty of cash is it's tangible. You can hide it under your bed. No one can hack a $100 bill. Are you concerned about that?
Well, I'm very concerned about cybersecurity. On the other hand, I think if we have a problem, hanging on to the rump of cash that we have left in our system's not going to save us. We need to protect ourselves. But yeah, that's, if you have a big storm that knocks out the power system, God forbid an EMP blast or something,
right.
It's very useful to have some rump of cash left there. Although, people have been very inventive when that's happened in the past with checks, IOUs, and other things. But no, we don't want to get rid of cash completely. But I do think if you look at what the government's printing, there's almost pushing over $4,500 for every man, woman, and child in the United States. And there are lots of surveys. Even if you take the part that's out of the country, the average person's holding maybe a couple hundred, $200-300,
right,
counting in their house, counting in their car. They're not holding $4,500, much less their kids.
No, they're not. Quickly, what do you make of Bitcoin? Where does that fall in the spectrum?
Well, I mean, Bitcoin's great innovation, but the part of it that's anonymous, eventually the government has to apply anti-money laundering rules, tax rules, and other things. I mean, the government can't just look the other way and let people do giant transactions, transnational, national, and not care about it. It's going to get regulated. I think the long run, Bitcoin's great technology, but it's more likely to look like MySpace that lost out to Facebook than it is to look like the next big thing.
Right, because it is a threat to the government in the end. And you never win threatening the government.
In the currency game, the government makes the rules. So this idea that you can invent a currency that wins out, it's nonsense. It won't. But it's a great technology. It has great uses.
I love the idea of it, though. Professor, thanks a lot for coming on. That was interesting.
Thank you very much for having me.